Again, welcome and good evening, everyone. And again, it is very nice to see and connect through the Zoom. And we have been having this series of 1 hour, kind of little bit of explanation and more of question and answer related to the request by the different students that they have requested different topic, different subjects. And so today's topic subjects, as many of you are aware, is Bodhichitta and Tonglen. And again, it was a practice requested by different students. One student requested on Bodhichitta, another student requested on Tonglen, and because they are related, which I try to put together. And then I think also we discuss equanimity last week, which also requested other students, and also because that was very related with this practice. Because as I mentioned last week on equanimity, because the equanimity, the foundations to develop the Bodhichitta mind. So I think it kind of fit in a right in terms of that. So we kind of discussed about the foundations, the equanimity. And today we talk about Bodhichitta and Tonglen a little bit without going, because each of those topics is, if you go details, weeks, many sessions. But again, it is just going to be very brief and mostly to take questions from the students who might have questions related to those topics. And so that is how we are going to proceed with this. So Bodhichitta is a very crucial practice, especially in Bodhisattva practice, especially Mahayana practice. That is the very heart of the practice and the very heart of all the teachings. As Nagarjuna says, if you want to attain enlightenment, if oneself or others want to attain enlightenment, and then one need to cultivate, the great compassion, the Bodhichitta mind, and non-dualistic exalted wisdom. So these three are the main kind of heart practice to achieve enlightenment. And same way, of course, also in sutras, also there is in a sutra where it says, I cannot recall the name of the sutra at the moment, but in a sutra it says, Buddha says, wisdom without compassion is a bondage, but wisdom with compassion is liberation. Same way, compassion without wisdom is a bondage, and compassion with wisdom is liberation. So again, the compassion, the Bodhichitta mind is crucial to enlightenment, non-abiding liberations or enlightenment. Also, Chandrakirti, one of the Nagarjuna, one of the early Indian great master, also in his supplementary The Middle Way, he also talked about, how the enlightenment of the arhat to arhat come through the Buddhas, and how the Buddha come through the Bodhisattvas, and how the Bodhisattvas come through the Bodhichitta mind. And so again, it goes back to the Bodhichitta mind. And then same way, Lama Tsongkhapa explained that in his three principal aspect of path and others, all of that. So in all those different teachings from the Buddha and Indian commentaries and all the Tibetan masters, it all emphasizes the importance of Bodhichitta mind as the center of all the practice, as the essence of all the practice, as the very heart of all the practice. So it is extremely important and powerful practice that practice and quality that one need to develop, And as Shantideva said, without the bodhicitta of exchanging self with others, there is no enlightenment, but while even in samsara, there will be no happiness. And so not only you want to achieve enlightenment, but if you want to be happy while you are in samsara, while you are on the path, we need the bodhicitta. If you have the bodhicitta mind, then you will find so much peace and happiness. Even we have not achieved enlightenment while we're on the path, to achieve enlightenment, it could the whole path might be long process. But since if we have bodhicitta, how long it might be, it will not be unhappy and miserable, but you will have a lot of joy and happiness while being even in samsara. Generally speaking, samsara is miserable. Okay? Generally speaking, samsara sucks. It's a miserable. It's a suffering and a pain. But while even in samsara, if we can cultivate that bodhicitta mind, it will not be such painful. It will be not such painful and such a suffering as it is now. It will not be as sucking as it is at the moment. And you are able to keep your mind in a positive state of mind and peace and calm through the power of your bodhicitta mind. And that is why the bodhisattvas are not afraid to come back in samsara again and again. That is why they are not scared and afraid of coming into the places where there's more sufferings. Because of the bodhicitta mind. For us, we want to run away as far as possible from any difficult places, any difficult circumstances, any difficult people. We want to keep distant. We want to run away. If there's a way, we can do that. Because we don't have the capacity to deal with those difficult challenges. Whether it's a difficult situation, challenges, people, sentient beings, when we are around them, it is very painful, it's hurtful. And so therefore, we don't know how to deal with that. We don't have the skill to deal with that. So therefore we try to, if there's a way we can kind of, just take off from some place, we would like to take off from those places. But the bodhisattva are not like that. They enjoy coming into the samsara where there's more suffering and pain. And because how is that? How can they be so different than us? We like to escape the problems, the suffering, but they want to come into the problem and suffering. And it is their bodhicitta mind. It is their bodhicitta mind. It is their bodhicitta mind that make them to feel joyful, feel joyfulness while being in that kind of, while being in samsara, So there are many kind of, His Holiness 14th Dalai Lama, shared a story about, he said, when he was reading a biography of first Dalai Lama, and he was reading, and at the very end of his biography, there was section about his last stages of his life, and before he was dying, and then he made some comment. I don't remember the exact comment, and then some of his followers and others around, say him, oh, you shouldn't be waiting, because you can go to any of the Pure Lands. You have the control where you can choose wherever Pure Land you want to go for who you are. And he said, I have no interest at all going to the Pure Land. Rather, I will come in the world where there's more suffering, so I can be benefit. That was his inspirations, that is his wish, that is his prayer, that is what. And His Holiness 14th Dalai Lama said when he saw that, it really kind of touched his heart, and it really inspired him, very touching. And I think it should be heart-touching for anyone. And same thing, His Holiness also personally make that prayer. So, he always, every time he said he make that prayer every day, from the verses from Shantideva, as long as the space remains, as long as the sentient beings remain, may I too remain, to dispel the suffering of all sentient misery or suffering of all sentient beings. He feels it truly. He doesn't pray, he doesn't wish to be born in some kind of Pure Land where there's no suffering, but he would rather come in the samsara where there's more suffering, where there's more suffering, because of that Bodhichitta mind. It is that Bodhichitta mind, And the Kadama master, Geshe Thubten, at the time of his death, he asked his disciples to make a lot of offering, because he said there are some bad signs, so he need to create more merit. And they were, how can that be? You are such a great practitioner, great master, and at the end of your life, how can you say you have such a kind of bad experience? And they asked why, what happened, and he said, all through my life, I've been praying, aspiring to come into the samsara to benefit others, but now I'm seeing visions of Pure Land. I'm having dreams and visions of this Pure Land. And so he doesn't want to go there. So he felt like he had kind of fell in a way that his wishes and that. And so therefore he wanted to change that. And so he wanted to create more other merit so that he can be able to not go into Pure Land, but rather come into samsara and to have such a incredible, the Bodhisattva's attitude, not fearful, not only not fearful, but looking forward, joyfulness, and that is what makes them to do that is Bodhichitta mind. It is the Bodhichitta mind. At the moment, we are unable to do because there is lack of Bodhichitta. Once we have been able to develop Bodhichitta, true Bodhichitta mind, then also we will not be so fearful of pain, sufferings, and to be in samsara anymore, So those are the experience of those who have really cultivated the Bodhichitta mind. That is how they felt. That is their experience. As wonderful as it sounds, the Bodhichitta mind, also, unless we have some strong imprint from the past, or unless we put the effort to cultivate that, it's not going to come very easily, Either we need to have a lot of imprint from the past, or we have to put a lot of effort to be able to develop that. But definitely, if we put effort, it is definitely possible. even His Holiness Dalai Lama shared his story. He said like in 60s, around 60s, he started to study more seriously about teaching, even though he studied in Tibet before he escaped in 1959. But I think he said he was not as serious at that time. But once he came to India, then he started to really pursue his study more seriously. And then, as he started to study a lot of Nagarjuna's and those great Indian masters' writings, Buddha Palida's writings, Arya Devas, Chandrakirti and so on, he felt, emptiness he can understand. And he felt like he can not only understand it, but it is possible he could have a realizations. That doesn't seem too far away. He felt that. But he said, Bodhichitta, he felt like it is too far away, too distant, too far away, felt like it was not possible. He felt the wisdom, the emptiness, wisdom realizing emptiness, he felt like it was within his reach, something possible after his study. But still, the Bodhichitta, he felt like it was very far away, very far away. And then later he said he received the teachings from one of the masters, the Shantideva's Geshe Thubten way of life. And then after that, he started to study more of that, study, reflect, contemplate, after that. And as he started to study, reflect, contemplate more and more that by using that text, then he started to feel slowly more connected with that practice. Slowly, it feels like it is reachable, it's not too far away. And slowly, he was able to develop the Bodhichitta mind. And, even publicly, nowadays he do share that he had that experience of the Bodhichitta mind, So again, even from an ordinary aspect, is something that he felt, very far away, unreachable at a certain time. And then with the persistence of study practice, now not only he felt it is reachable, but he was able to actualize that mind. And that is what keep him, give him a sanity, kind of peace, despite all the things that is going in the world, and personally, the Tibet issue, personally, all of that, personally, unfounded attack by the Chinese government all the time. Anytime, any problem in Tibet, they point out him, it's saying he's the one behind them, all of that. Despite that, he has been able to keep his mind calm, peaceful. Not only that, compassionate. He says, he keep those leaders in his meditation practice compassion. He feel compassion for them, not upset and angry. And so again, so that is so it is not so easy, but is something within the reach. It's not something unreachable. It's not something impossible. And so the things that we have to put more effort in practicing that. And in terms of practicing that, as many of you know, there is in the Buddhist scriptures, then there are two different techniques that you see. One technique known as 7 point of cause and effect. Another technique, equalizing, exchanging self with others, and you can use either of the technique. By using any of the techniques, one can cultivate the Bodhichitta mind. By using any, for some people, one particular technique is more effective than others. One is able to relate more strongly towards one method than others. For some people, equalizing, exchanging self method is more effective because they can connect more strongly with that particular technique or meditations. And they can relate that more easily. And for some people, the technique of 7 cause of effect is, they feel more connected with that. They feel more effective. They feel more related with that. So it depends on individuals, but one can use either of those technique or meditations. And whatever method you use, either of them, the foundation is the equanimity, that which we discussed last week. We went quite a bit in equanimity last week as the foundation for that. And then, either we're equalizing self or others or whatever, first of things is that we have to feel that we are all sentient beings, not only all human beings, but we all sentient beings are same and equal. That is the first step, that to feel that we are same and equal. Feeling that in a sense, on fundamental level, we all are same sentient beings with same emotions, same feeling, same mind, We all have that kind of, we all have emotions, we all have feelings, we all have mind, There's no difference at that fundamental level, We all want to be happy and do not want a pain, all of us, all sentient beings. There's no difference in that. Fundamentally, on innate level, that is not something that we acquired later through studies that I want to be happy and I don't want suffering. It's not something our parents teach us. Oh, you have to learn to be happy and not to suffer. And it's not from the very beginning, birth, the child want to be happy and not to suffer. And that is why when they cry, when they have pain and suffering, because that is something they do not want. And that is for all sentient beings, not only we human beings, the animal, even the animals, even with the insect, you can see they try to avoid anything that gives them pain, suffering. They try to avoid that, and they try to achieve whatever gives them kind of joy and satisfaction, happiness. And we can, if you observe, it's clear, when they see something trying to attack them, because they know that will be painful, they don't want that pain, they try to run away or they try to defend themselves. Those are very clear indications that nobody wants pain and suffering. Everyone wants happiness. We all. And not only that, we all have a right to be happy and not to suffer equally. Everyone has same right to be happy and not to suffer. So we talk about human right. Buddha is saying sentient beings' right. Go beyond that human beings' right. All sentient beings' right. That means we all sentient beings have a right to be happy and not to suffer. And also we all have the potential to be happy and not to suffer. So on that basis of understanding, then we try to feel we all are same. That is the first thing, if we don't feel that, then we will always have this kind of discriminating mind. We will always have this discriminating mind. And if we have discriminating mind, then it's hard to develop great compassion and bodhichitta. Our compassion will be very biased and partial and discriminating, so therefore, that is the first thing, that, and to feel that, we have to meditate, spend enough time to really feel how we all are same on that fundamental level. Once we feel same and equal on that level, then it will be much more easier for us to feel love, compassion for others, and cherish others just as we cherish ourselves. Then, just as we try to cherish ourselves, And just as we try to take care of ourselves, our well-being, then we will also start to feel, to cherish others and trying to feel for the well-being of others. Once you feel that we are same in that way, if we don't feel that, then it will be difficult. So that, and then, one of the main obstacles to develop the Bodhichitta mind is selfish attitude, self-centeredness. So then again, then trying to reduce that selfish attitude, self-centeredness, because less selfish attitudes, less self-centeredness, the more easier it is for us to develop compassion and Bodhichitta mind. The more stronger selfish attitude, the more stronger self-centeredness, the more difficult it is to feel compassion and bodhicitta to all sentient. So we try to reduce that selfish attitude as much as possible, from whatever point of view, from whatever practice. And then we try to cultivate more stronger cherishing thought for others, because it is that cherishing thought for others that give us the space for us to feel love, compassion, and bodhicitta mind towards others. So by understanding how how others are the source of our temporary and ultimate happiness, and how cherishing them is the source of our own happiness, ultimate happiness, temporary ultimate happiness. Cherishing others, that thought of cherishing others is the source of ours and others' temporary and ultimate happiness. And through that, by that understanding, then we try to develop more and more of that cherishing thought for others. The more stronger cherishing thought we have for others, the more easier it is us to feel compassion and develop bodhicitta minds towards them. And then in order to improve the practice of loving kindness and great compassion, which are the two main root of the bodhicitta mind, then we try to do the practice of Tonglen. Tonglen is a technique, meditations, a technique and meditations to increase and improve our sense of loving kindness and compassion towards other sentient beings. So with the practice of Tonglen, you try to take all the suffering and cause of suffering for others on yourself, and you try to give all your virtues, all your excellent qualities, all your positive qualities towards others, all your happiness towards others. And so that is the Tonglen. Tonglen, basically, Tong means giving, Len means taking, giving and taking. Or in English, we do taking and giving, because when you do the practice, taking, it is the first the taking. So, but I think in Tibetan, I don't know why giving comes first. Maybe it's just the way the wording, because sometimes the way the sentence and the word makes. So I don't know, but that is Tonglen, and especially the Tonglen practice is very helpful, powerful practice, especially when we are dealing with certain individuals that are problematic, that are annoying, irritating us, someone who is irritating us, annoying us, if you can do Tonglen with them, towards them, of course, at the very beginning, there will be a lot of resistance. There will be a lot of strong resistance. Your mind will resist, because that person is someone, irritate you, that person is something that disturb your mind, agitate your mind, disturb your mind. So how can I take that person suffering on me when that person is, how can I give my happiness to that person, But even there is kind of resistance, but if you sincerely try to do practice slowly, we will be able to overcome that kind of resistance. And once we have been able to overcome that resistance, and if we are able to feel the practice, then you wouldn't feel same kind of irritations, annoyed by them, agitating, and anger, and so I think maybe this is a better powerful practice nowadays to do it, because I think in this particular time, I think, the whole country is going through a lot of turmoils, difficult emotionally, mentally, that is happening in the world. So there are certain individuals that is upsetting you, disturbing you, maybe what we need, we try to do practice, especially take their, especially take their anger, all their behavior actions is because of their anger, ignorance, those delusions, whatever that might be, sense of misinformed, misunderstanding, ignorance, maybe anger, lot of frustrations, lot of impatience, whatever is mental state that is disturbing them to act in such a violent or unhealthy way, so we try to take all these negative feelings, negative thoughts, and we try to send them loving kindness, compassion, wisdom, sending all our prayers, all our virtues, all our positive qualities, all our happiness in the form of, wisdom, understanding, patience, love, compassion, and then thinking they receive it, and so, and they need more love and compassion in order to kind of heal them of their anger, frustration, hatred, whatever that is disturbing them. Those kind of anger, hatred, frustration cannot be healed by anger and hatred back. It can be only healed by love and compassion, and so what they require is more love and compassion, not anger and hatred, because more anger and hatred is like throwing kerosene on the burning fire. So it will only increase that fire. It will not cool down that fire. And so to cool down that fire, we need to put water of love and compassion to cool down that. And so even though we might not be able to do directly at this point, but we can, through practice meditation, we can try to send the love, compassion, the light, all of that. And so Tonglen practice might be very helpful and powerful practice in dealing with certain individuals that are kind of disturbing our mind, making our mind restless, agitated, that practice can be very powerful, It could help that person as well if we have a strong karmic connections, It could have some small impact on that person if we have a strong karmic connection through our such practice and prayer and dedication. But even it doesn't really, kind of immediately kind of help that person, at least it helps to subside and cool our own frustration, our own anger, our own hatred, our own restlessness, our own frustration, impatience, all of that, at least it helped us that. And it helped us not to lose the love and compassion towards others because of their such behavior, so that we can continue to grow our love and compassion further and further, and also to so that it gives rise to the Bodhichitta mind. So I think maybe that is more or less, I think I have been blah, blah, blah so much. I think I saw there's one question. Let me read and see, One thing I had noticed in recent years was how much I confused emotional compassion with compassion, and how fragile the first sort of compassion was. Absolutely, I think you made the right point, and I think I have been mentioning quite often in our teachings. Emotional compassion and compassion that is cultivated through practice, and that is what we want to develop. A compassion that we cultivate through practice that is based on understanding. That is based on understanding, that is based on wisdom. Whereas emotional compassions is, it doesn't have to be based on understanding necessarily. It doesn't have to be based on wisdom, it just arises. Is part of emotional, and that one, as we mentioned, is very unstable, very fragile, very fragile, For example, maybe I see someone suffering there, then I feel emotional compassions. Emotional compassion because I see the pain there. I try to help. And then that person shouted at me, said nasty things, bad things. And then compassion is gone. Compassion is overtaken by anger. That is emotional compassions. So fragile. On the basis of that person's one behavior, certain actions, your compassion totally flip back to the opposite, to anger. Not only you lose the compassion, but it just flip opposite side, upside down. Now you have so much anger. I'm trying to help you. I'm trying to be helpful, and now how dare you be so nasty and mean to me, instead of being grateful and gratitude. Such is, but compassion, that is, and as I often mention, that kind of emotional compassion, even the animals have that kind of compassionate emotions, emotional compassions. We can see that. Even in animal, we see that. The mother's compassion for their child. Sometimes their compassion is even more stronger than our human beings. You see some animals, the mothers, the parents, they sacrifice, they give their life to protect their children. You often see that. Some of these very fragile animals, birds and others, very small, very tiny, they don't have much to protect themselves, and their children being attacked by very powerful, strong another animals. Despite, they're small and they don't have any defense, they will jump to protect the child, in the process losing their own life. That is compassion, the mother's compassion for the child. So even the animals have that. Not only that, sometimes even animals, not only their children, you see them, showing the compassions, that kind of emotional compassions within their species, trying to protect each other's. Even it's not their children's. So that kind of compassion is, as you rightly mentioned, is very fragile, unstable, and it can come and go easily. And, but the compassions that we develop on the basis of, as I mentioned, on the basis of understanding that others, on the basis of understanding and wisdom, that because they do not want suffering. On the basis because they do not want suffering and they want happiness. If you are able to develop on that understanding, on the basis of that, then, even their response in negative, badly towards us, that has not changed. Whether they are grateful to us or whether they are, very aggressive to us, still their wish to be happy and not to suffer is still there. So your basis for the compassion is always there. Your basis for compassion is not how they respond, but on the basis they do not want suffering and they are still suffering. That's it. So since the basis is there, so your compassion does not lose because the basis is still there, so you are able to keep it. And so that is the compassion that we were trying to cultivate. That is the compassion the Buddha is encouraging us to cultivate. That kind of compassions that we develop through meditations, practice, training your mind on the basis of such understanding. And so once it will take time and effort, but once we develop that, then it will not be so fragile like the emotional compassions. And also it will be easy to expand to all sentient beings when you develop that on the basis of that understanding, because every sentient beings do not want to be suffering, do not wish suffering, want suffering, and still they are suffering. So therefore, again, it's easy to expand that compassion in that way easily to others, because it doesn't depend on how they respond to you. Your compassion is not depend on how they respond to you, whether how they are related to you. At the moment, our emotional compassion is very much, how that being is related to me. If they are related in a good way, because they are my families, because they are my friend, because they have been kind, because they have been nice, because they have been supportive, then when I see their pain, suffering, I have compassion. If they are not related to me, because they are not part of my family, they are not part of my friend, they have never been supportive, they have never been helpful, so then even I see their pain, I might not feel so much compassion. So, but the compassion that we are trying to develop through practice is not based on, whether it doesn't matter how they are related to us, whether they have been supportive, unsupportive, whether they are our friends, not friends, whether they are our family, not families, on the base that they all want happiness and do not want suffering, and that is it, on the basis of that. And so therefore, that is where the first point become very fundamental to really have that kind of compassion, yeah. So any other questions, please? You can raise your hand or send through the chatting. See who is.
Geshe-la?
Yes, please, Rowena, yes.
Okay, there's a problem that I run into because I engage in a lot of behaviors sort of automatically, okay? And I can think I'm being caring and all that sort of thing, but quite often I'm not hitting what needs to be done very well. And I just wonder sometimes, it might take a special compassion to be when you're dealing with those things, because quite often there's karmic links between you and the people that you're working with or being with. And I'm just trying to figure out how to train to be more aware. And if you have any suggestions on that.
Okay. Well, I think that is where the vigilance and mindfulness come all the time. that is why mindfulness vigilant is one of the very fundamental practice in all different Buddhist spiritual practice. Whether you are following a Theravadan tradition, whether you are following a Mahayana tradition or Vajrayana, that practice is very fundamental, very foundations, and if you are more vigilant and mindful, and if we learn to examine our thoughts, our minds, and our speech, our behavior, more mindful and vigilant around our surrounding, then we'll be more aware, Sometimes not only ourselves, sometimes we have to be also mindful, vigilant, how people are responding, how people are reacting. You see, oh, they have been hurt. If you are more mindful, vigilant, then you see, oh, because of my speech, they are a little bit hurt. And so then you can see the effect of that. Then maybe you say, oh, I don't mean to do, or I'm sorry that I did that. I wasn't mean to say that. So then there is a space to clear things, which you don't mean it. Sometimes people get hurt, even you don't mean to hurt others because of misunderstanding, miscommunications, the way we do. And sometimes, even though maybe with our certain actions and behavior, whatever it is, whether it is our physical behavior or speech or our attitude, maybe someone is felt a little bit hurtful. And sometimes we are not even aware of that. We are so occupied with our own other thoughts and other things. We are not even aware that someone was hurt by our that. If we are aware of that, if we are more vigilant and mindful, we will be more aware of that, the surrounding us, around us. And if you are more mindful, first of all, you will be more careful. And secondly, even we have hurt someone unintentionally, then there is a time to clarify things and to clear things so that they don't get hurt due to that kind of miscommunication and misunderstanding. But to be able to do that, we have to be aware of that. Sometimes we are not aware of those things. And so I think training to be vigilant and mindful all the time, I think that would probably be one of the things I think, helpful to be more aware of all of that, yeah. So that is.
With the isolation we're suffering, some of us, with the COVID and all that, I just feel like there's gaps now. I don't see somebody for a while, or I get very excited to see them. It's like there's this hit and miss thing that's happening sometimes with people, and I'm really trying to be mindful, but I'm not always good at it, because all our relations have been we're handling things differently, so it's pretty much of a challenge.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I think definitely. I think it's not easy time for a lot of people. Being isolated for a long time. So then I think, when things are not easy, then small things can trigger us easily on both sides, When two families trying to meet, two friends trying to meet, because they both are having difficulties with the whole situation, everything. So maybe it is more easy to easily trigger each other's with small things. And so then again, when we are more peaceful and less problem, then we don't trigger easily, even with things that we make, even the maybe if we are not very skillful, still other person can understand that and kind of not be upset and triggered by that. But when someone's mind is disturbed and not stable and peace, then it's hard to be understanding, it's hard to be patient, it's hard to be compassionate. And then if someone make a small mistake, it's easy to kind of upset, easy to be frustrated, easy to be impatient and all of that. But I think, one of the things, it's difficult to be mindful if we don't apply that mindfulness introspection in our everyday life frequently. If I don't do that practice all the time, then in certain situation I try to do it, it might not be as powerful. But if it's something that I've been doing every day consistently, then that practice comes naturally, and that will help us to be more aware of all of those things. Okay, there are a few questions.
Geshe Ralph has a question.
Yes, please.
Good evening, Geshe. Thank you so much for the teaching tonight. I'm very grateful. Romantic relationships are always so interesting. I love this discussion about compassion and loving kindness and how to practice. And there's something that still I'm wrestling with and having difficulty with in terms of resting with or coming to peace with. This instance happened 4 years ago, long-term relationship, 17 years I was in. And so she breaks up and she calls me. I decided that I wanted to have no contact, that it was unhealthy for me to be in a relationship of any sort going forward. And I expressed that. And she came to me some months later, several times. She kept coming back to me. And I no contact in response from me. And she at one point said, I have one question to ask you, and I ask you to respond out of compassion, not out of anything else. Using that word really kind of triggered me. It really made me feel a lot of guilt in not responding and not a big. I just couldn't. So I've really been trying to find that place of settledness with this notion that I might have done something wrong, right, in not responding, because I wasn't showing my compassion in the way she wanted it expressed. I believe, I really wanted her to be happy. I believe that I loved her on that basis. But for my own well-being, I felt I could not meet her requests. So could you help me with that a little bit, perhaps?
Well, I think, it's never too late to feel compassion and express compassion, even though maybe you have never been able to express that at that time when she was asking. But if you still really feel truly that you want to see her be happy, and if you feel that kind of feeling for her, compassion, even though no more in relation, but you really want her to be happy and her to have a happy life, and if you that really feel that, then it is never too late to express that. Whether they accept that or not is something, whether she's willing to accept, and whether she feels it's too late, that you should have expressed that earlier, you should have done that earlier. So that is another thing that is her problem, and she had to deal with that. It's something she had to deal with that. But from your side, if you feel that, then I think it's never too late to express that. And after that, then it is up to her how she take that and how she move forward. But from your side, I think that is never too late to do that. If you feel it, of course, if you don't feel it, then just writing that is not a sincerity, it's not really coming from your heart. But if you really feel it, it's never too late. You can still do that. And there is always, we will always go through that kind of experience in our life, so many experiences. I should have done this in that situations. When you look back after in your life, at that time I should have done that, or I shouldn't have done that, and this and that. We have all this with every different situation and all of that. And it's not helpful. Of course, we can learn from them, and we learn from those experiences, and hopefully we have gained some experience, some wisdom from those experiences, and maybe hopefully we make less of those mistakes in the futures, and that. But also, we are also to be realistic and honest. We are also ordinary beings, and as ordinary beings with delusions, we make mistakes.
So if we broaden it, thank you so much. But if I broaden it, and I think of all the relationships, many of us who are attracted to Buddhist philosophy, psychology, we tend to be empathetic by nature. I know I am. And so sometimes I will reach out. Sometimes I will go maybe a little bit further than others in terms of helping. And people will take advantage, and we'll try to draw a boundary or a line where we cannot do any more. That's what this felt like to me. So taking the broader perspective, then, how perhaps do I manage those types of situations where somebody keeps asking, or taking, and I simply can't do any more?
Yeah, compassion is state of mind. You can feel compassion, and you can say no.
Mm-hmm.
There is no contradictions and conflict in that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because you might not feel compassion, but maybe you might not also not say no, and you just keep on giving with resentment,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Oh, this person is so demanding, or this person is so you have all this resentment, all this bad feeling, but you still continue to give because you can't say no, unable to say no. That is not compassion, because your state in your mind, there's the resentment. You are unhappy, maybe even anger,
Mm-hmm.
So compassion is state of mind. And so, for example, a parent who has a compassion for the child, and when child want to do something, and when the parent feel it is not helpful for them, it is not healthy for them, they will say no. They have to say no. And saying that no is out of compassion, is not compassion. Because of their compassion, they are able to say no, because they know it's not healthy, it's something harmful. So therefore, to set up certain boundaries, when someone goes beyond the boundaries, doesn't necessarily conflict and contradict being a compassionate, because it is state of mind, so therefore I think so I think we have to be able to differentiate that and to kind of really understand, yeah.
Thank you.
Most welcome. So I think there is, few questions.
One from Heather. Yes, Geshe, thank you. Shall I read it?
I can see. Can you speak on how deluded pride is better to cultivating compassion? Yeah, I think deluded pride is sense of arrogant, sense of superiority, sense of self-importance, feeling you are more superior than others. And so definitely that become a barrier to have a compassion, to cultivate compassion, to really feel a compassion, to develop a great compassion. Even if we cannot feel others are more precious than ourselves, at least we have to feel equal. At least we have to feel we are precious, equally precious. At least we have to cherish equally. And when you feel pride and a sense of superior, then that means you are cherishing yourself more than others. The sense of that kind of deluded pride, there's a sense of putting down others because of that, your feeling of more superiority, and that could manifest in different ways, sometimes very subtle way, sometimes more obvious. Sometimes it could manifest in our speech, our physical behavior. Sometimes it might not manifest in a physical behavior and speech, but it could manifest in our mental attitude, and even in mental attitude, sometimes it is quite obvious, sometimes it is more subtle. But when you have that kind of deluded pride, there's sense of that pride has sense of arrogance, sense of yourself, more superiority, based on whatever, sometimes it is based on, we think maybe we have better education, we think maybe we are more intellectuals, more educated because we are more, status, because I'm, teachers, leaders, or because, I'm more beautiful, more handsome, or because, I believe in this religions or spiritual path, which is more superior to your path, or because, I follow these particular ideologies or certain, whether it's a politic ideology or other ideologies, and that is more based on wisdom, and your ideology is based on ignorance. On the basis of that, then I'm more superior and you are less. And so there's sense of that. And when you started to feel that way, then it create a boundary to feel real compassion towards such individuals. So so that is how it can become that diluted pride can become better to cultivating true compassions and the Bodhichitta mind. Yeah. Oh, I think we are already over 8. So, okay. So then I think, so we thank you for joining, taking your time and making the effort. So then we dedicate all our virtues for the well-being of all sentient beings, and for oneself and all sentient beings to cultivate the Bodhichitta mind, and wisdom relies on the ultimate reality. And for us to achieve fully awakened state and be benefit to all sentient beings. Thank you very much, everyone. Good night.